What's up, guys? Welcome to Chasing Pelagics. I'm Jeff, and this is part 3 of our Cobia 237 project boat series. If you missed the prior episodes, make sure you go back and watch to catch up where we are. So now I want to cover the unexpected finds that we found over the first couple months of operating the boat. And the first one I wanted to cover was a trip I was going to go out bluefin fishing. It was going to really be like my first long run on the boat, significant miles, probably going to do like 150-ish miles that day, based on where the fish were. And had the boat loaded up, full of ice, baits, everything. And about 35 minutes into our trip, we're cruising along, and I lost all power on the house side of the boat. I lost all my electronics, lost all the pumps, all the lights, no bait pump, no bilge pump. Pretty much everything on the house side. Engine still ran fine. That was running off the engine battery. Didn't have any trouble with that. Just everything on the house side of the boat done. Went and checked all the stupid stuff first. Relay panels. No circuit breakers were tripped. I knew that there was a problem with some of the actual battery switches. The first generation of the ones that were on my boat. Checked it out. Everything was still look fine. Didn't see anything of concern other than I had no power. I did have a multimeter on the boat. It was a cheap one, not a fancy Fluke or anything like that. So the leads weren't super long, but I checked what I could. And I still had power on the house side, but I didn't have any power at anything on the relay panel side. So I knew I had a problem in between the two spots, but I didn't really just have the time on a boat to really dive in and trace wires and do anything like that. So I decided to put my tail between the legs, head home, and dive into it. It took me about an hour after really kind of tracing wires and figuring out exactly what went where. But basically what had happened is the main wire that ran from the main circuit breaker for the house, it runs through into the console, and then it attaches to the first circuit breaker. And then from that point on, the powers just ran in jumpers from each circuit breaker to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And then the actual circuit is ran off the other side of the breaker. So the one side is just power with complete jumper wires, and that's just how they're put together. So what had happened is I don't know, from time or the original wiring of the boat wasn't really secure enough. I don't know if it's just vibration or maybe it was just when it was assembled, but the actual spade where the jumper wire fit into actually broke, but it wasn't all the way broken, so it was still in place, but it was creating a voltage drop. And you can see here in this picture, this is what it looked like when the power was on. And I found this by just doing a wiggle test and wiggling each wire, trying to find out where this power problem was. And this was it. So I ended up getting all new jumpers. I removed every single jumper, checked every spade, made sure that none of them were brittle or weak like how this one was, which I didn't find anything else that was out of place. And then replaced all the jumpers, zip tied them back real nice and tight together so there's no vibration could cause any more issues with that. And put it all back together. Not a whole lot of money in parts, but lost a day and, $50 for the bait and, 100 pounds of ice. But all in all, it could have been worse. Still got home, didn't have to be towed or nothing like that. Being self-sufficient is an important one. So. Strike two. This one caught me off guard. I was out on a short trip just to run to Newport and back. Maybe like 45 minutes of runtime total on the boat. Day seemed great. Pulled it off the trailer, and my starboard trim tab was hanging on for dear life. So I'll give you the reasoning of why this happened and how you can avoid it. Something I probably should have checked for, but really wasn't thinking about it at the time. Um, but as I mentioned before, this boat was a Freedom Boat Club boat. Sat in the water with bottom paint its entire 3-year life there. And I noticed the thing that was missing on this trim tab was a zinc. And come to find out, they never put zincs on either side. So if you're not familiar with what zincs do, they are a sacrificial metal when your boat sits in the water. So instead of the salt attacking the important parts of your boat, these are your sacrificial lambs, so to speak. So by not having a zinc on the trim tab, the ocean water decided to go after the next weakest link, which was the mounting screws of the trim tabs that went into the hole. Now, the tricky thing is that you can't see these on the boat because these are special trim tabs. They're custom made, they're recessed, they're a special shape, and they're not just an off the part shelf. So when the trim tab is properly attached, the trim tab is folded over and the screws are on the inside and you can't see them. So what happened is the salt had attacked the screws and a bunch of the heads fell off or essentially broke off over time, and they weren't visible because they were folded over. So eventually it got down to like the last two, and it broke one on one side, but it was still hanging on by one screw on the other side, and that's how I still had my trim tab. So it broke the little plastic mount where the actuator attaches to it, but I still had my trim tab. So that was the good news. It was a little bit bent. I was able to straighten it out. It wasn't too much of an issue. The little plastic portions for where the actuators mount to, really easily to get, readily available. Got some new ones of those. The second part was I underestimated how hard it was to get those broken screws out. So I like to make things perfect and make sure that they're 100%. So I also removed the port side trim tab and found very similar results. Half the screw heads were missing or broken off. Some were still in there. So I removed the screws that were there, and those holes were preserved and were fine. However, the ones that were broken off were going to be a difficult task to remove. So I wanted to cover this because I was trying to come up with ways of how to really do this procedure and what was the best way to get it done. And it seemed like it was going to be kind of a big project, and ended up being way easier than what I thought it was going to be. So first things first, to remove the broken screws. This boat, as I mentioned before, does not have wood in it, so there's no wood to be worried about rotting. Nothing in the boat was going to be rotting because water got into these areas. It's literally just a hole and the screw. So first things first is I bought some hollow drill bits that are used for drilling tile. They're like diamond head, and they make them in various sizes so you can kind of match the screw size to the basically like mini hole saw of what these are, right? So it's not like your traditional hole saw, it's just very small size. They're like 1/4 to 1/2 to 3/8 depending on what size screws you got. So trim tabs are off. I got probably 6 or 7 on each side I got to get out. So what I did is I drilled over the screws till I got deep enough where I thought I could get a good grip on the screw. Now, channel locks didn't really work that well in trying to grip the screw. Duck-billed pliers and needle nose was really the best bet, and just squeezing as hard as I could. I backed them out. Most of the ones that I could get, I could back out, so I didn't have to go super deep. Some of the screws were in pretty deep, so I actually having to go a little deeper than I wanted to. And then once you got the screws out, or if you had drilled down some with those hollow bits that I was mentioning, you got to fill the void. You can't just leave it like that. You don't want to put longer screws in. Those trim tabs got to go back on and be properly supported. And I'm not just going to fill them with 5200 and call it a day. So I want to put fiberglass back in the boat and move on from there. So the next great thing that they make is a self-mixing solution for fiberglass repairs, and literally just the tip itself mixes the two parts, including the resin and the catalyst together. So you literally just pump it in a caulking tube and it fills right up. So it was actually really easy to fill the holes in. I used a little wire just to make sure I got the air pockets out and kind of swirled it around and then pumped it and then just kind of wiped it flat so it left a nice flat smooth finish. We don't have to worry about putting gel coat over it or anything like that. It's going to be covered up by the trim tab, so nothing cosmetically more to look at. We're just looking for function here. So made the repairs on all the holes, and then what I did is once it dried and cured, I went back and I mounted up the trim tabs with the holes that were good and let them hang there, and then I re-drilled pilot holes for all the holes that I had filled in after I had removed the screws. And then I sized to the proper bit and measured the depth of the original screw, taped off on my drill bit. So I only drilled the absolute maximum necessary I need to do to make sure that those screws were in and didn't crack the fiberglass when I installed new screws. So once I did that, that was pretty simple, straightforward, and then remounted the rest of the trim tabs on both sides, reattached the actuators, and all fixed. So if you are going to buy a boat and it's been sitting in the water and you're unsure, make sure you look to see that you have zincs on those trim tabs. Remember, anything in the water is going to be attacked by salt water. It's the most corrosive environment on this planet that we frequent. So just a heads up for something to look for, or maybe if you're following a survey around on a boat or a buddy's boat that you're going to look at. So it's just something to look forward to. But at the end of the day, it could be repaired and nothing crazy. Thankfully, didn't lose any parts. Cost of the screws, minimal. I think I was in it to like $50 for the fiberglass resin, and all in all, a much easier repair than I anticipated. It just took a little bit more time and killed a weekend off the water, but not too bad. The last one, which is kind of a dumb one, and it's just I actually noticed it the first time I freshwater flushed, which I always do at my house because I don't live too far from the marina. But turned on the water and everything started flowing correctly, and I heard a noise, and then there's a lot of water coming out of the midsection of the outboard, and I was like, well, what is, like, did the internal hose pop off? Like, what's the deal? Turned off the water, looked in there, and the freshwater hose that goes into there's like a check valve, and it had popped off the check valve because of too much water pressure, which I never had a problem on a Yamaha. You can give as much water pressure as you want. So I'm having to take off part of the side shaft to get to it. But the thing that really confused me the most was that there was no hose clamp on it. And instead of areas that I would use a hose clamp on, Mercury uses zip ties. And at first I thought, like, did someone come in here and just do some maintenance and was a total sloppy hack and just put zip ties on everything instead of using a proper hose clamp? But no, that is the way it comes from the factory. I personally don't agree with it. I think a banding clamp would be a much better choice, like they use on their thermostats and other areas. When you do your preventive maintenance, you'll notice. But yeah, black zip ties were used in multiple areas for hoses that I didn't think you ever would. But for my own sake, I put a proper hose clamp on it, so I never had to worry about it again. But yeah, that was really another dumb, simple one, but it didn't take me too long to fix either. So, end of the day, all said and done, I kept this boat for a little over a season, put a little over 100 hours on it. Other than the items I mentioned, it was a really great boat, really great ride. I thought it was a pretty good value for what I paid for it. I did not make a killing reselling it. Like I said, I kind of spent a little bit more on electronics than I had originally planned on. When I bought it, I definitely bought it right at the time. I paid a really good price on it. But by the time I sold it, many more Freedom boats were making their ways to the market from other clubs and also locally, which I'd never seen before. So the amount of inventory coming into the market was a lot more than anticipated. So I still did pretty good when I sold it. All in all, I ended up breaking even. But for a boat, for a little, obviously some elbow grease, and all in all, to run it for a little over a year and break even when you sell it, I call it a win. So yeah, there's that. Would I do it again? If I was looking for another one for me with a little bit lower hours than what I got, yeah, I would probably do it again. I would definitely inspect it for cosmetics better than this one. The stitching in the seats was probably going to be next. I wasn't holding up that great. Again, I wasn't going to put a whole bunch more money into this boat anyway, but a new interior on this boat for the seats was probably going to cost somewhere close to $2,000 probably. And I wasn't looking to do that on this boat. So yeah, just be mindful if you pick one up to make sure you look at it cosmetically, and always pay for a survey just for the peace of mind. The $500 or $600 you pay, I think is well worth it, and will alleviate you from any super major surprises as much as possible. So that's it for our project boat. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we're shopping for another boat here. So maybe we'll make another video once we pick it up. See ya. If you like what you saw today, you can subscribe to our channel or follow us along on Instagram and Facebook. And always remember, share the stoke.